I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Another day, and in the House of Representatives, now controlled by MAGA Republicans, more hearings and more floor speeches where Democrats have been calling out and exposing these MAGA Republicans. Each and every one of these days where these floor speeches are held and these committee hearings take place, it is backfiring big time for the MAGA Republicans. So let me give you the highlights from the Democratic side and the lowlights from the MAGA Republicans. So let me show you this. This is a speech on the House floor by Congressmember Jamie Raskin, who's calling out the big lie. Play this clip.
To uphold the Constitution, that's why people go to court and they swear an oath to tell the truth. Now, they take their shocking nihilism about what's true and what's false, and they convert it to this entire Congress. And it all starts, of course, with January 6th. And before that, the presidential election. All starts with a big lie. Donald Trump's big lie. Well, they say, well, who knows? Maybe he won, maybe he didn't. You say Joe Biden's president, we say Donald Trump's president. Nonsense. 60 federal and state courts rejected every claim of electoral fraud and corruption that they put forward. 60 federal and state courts rejected every claim. They don't have a single court that ever ruled in their favor. Donald Trump lost that election by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. So then their big lie now has to stretch all the way over January 6th. We have to disbelieve the evidence of our own eyes, of our own ears. We saw them come and descend upon this chamber, this Congress, wounding and injuring 150 of our police officers, breaking people's noses, breaking people's fingers, putting people in the hospital. And already they're back on the news with big lies saying, no, it was a tourist visit. Like these real tourists up here who have to come and watch representatives in the United States Congress say there's no difference between truth and lies. Real tourists who are not beating the daylights out of our police officers.
In this next clip, first you'll hear from MAGA Republican Chuck Edward, who is spreading a lie about the FBI's interaction with Twitter leading up to the 2020 election. And then you'll see Democratic Congressmember Dan Goldman respond and completely dismantle the fallacious argument being spewed by MAGA Republican Chuck Edward. Play this clip.
In a recent hearing held by the Oversight and Accountability Committee with former executives from Twitter, a clear and very disturbing pattern emerged. A coordinated effort between a privately owned social media giant and the federal government to suppress critical reporting ahead of the 2020 presidential election.
I have no idea what hearing the gentleman from North Carolina is referring to, because at the hearing with Twitter executives that I attended, where the head of trust and safety was specifically asked if the FBI had given any information, instructions, or directions about the Hunter Biden New York Post story, he specifically said no, they did not receive any information. So if that's what you all think that you're basing this bill on, the actual facts and evidence are precisely the opposite of that. It's preposterous that you continue to say that over and over and over as if it's true when the evidence is directly contradictory to that.
Here is Democratic Congressmember Dan Goldman saying, can somebody explain to me the FBI is supposed to now be a Democratic organization? What are you talking about, MAGA Republicans? Play this clip.
And yet somehow I gather that the FBI is supposed to be a Democratic-leaning organization, an agency doing the Democrats' bidding. Well, you could have fooled me back in 2016 when the director of the FBI announced 10 days before the election that he was reopening an investigation into the Democratic candidate for president, while an investigation was also ongoing into the Republican candidate for president, and yet that remained quiet. Explain to me how that is the FBI doing the bidding of the Democrats.
And again, here's Democratic Congressmember Dan Goldman from New York, who's a freshman member of Congress, but a former federal prosecutor. He's been awesome. And here he is basically saying, do we all remember, though, that the administration, when you're claiming that this so-called censorship was taking place, that it was the Trump administration? It was a Republican administration? Play the clip.
From New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's funny to hear about how the Democrats are colluding in order to censor free speech on social media when the administration in control of the federal government at the time of the alleged horrific censorship that my Republican colleagues are citing was a Republican administration. It was the administration of President Donald Trump in October of 2020.
And here is Lauren Boebert, extremist MAGA Republican, saying, America without free speech is like a phone without its charger. Wow. Play this clip.
Yes, China is a threat, but nothing, and I mean nothing, will bring America to its knees like the removal of our free speech, the cornerstone for our constitutional republic. America without free speech is like a phone without a charger. It's only a matter of time before it dies.
Speaking of Lauren Boebert, this was a committee hearing where Congresswoman Bush points out to Lauren Boebert, and Lauren Boebert gets really angry about this, that the witness that Boebert called had made racist comments before. And Lauren Boebert's like, there's nothing racist about anything he said. And Representative Bush, the Democrat, goes, well, he's saying that other cultures are inferior to white cultures. Here, play this clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like a parliamentary inquiry into taking down the gentlelady's words, the ranking member's words, for insinuating that our witness made white supremacist statements using his words.
Okay. It's only against members of the president. Okay. The chair cannot take down words that are directed toward a witness only to other members.
As I was saying, the African and African American Studies Department, this is the quote, has 23 classes. In many of these classes, African culture is presented not as inferior to Western culture, but as on equal footing with it. In other departments, the same is done with Latin American, Indian, and American Indian culture, end quote. When confronted about these views over 2 decades later, rather than disavow them, he doubled down on this narrative saying, quote, it has nothing to do with skin color. I was arguing that those cultures overall are inferior to Western culture. We are not inferior to any culture, speaking as a descendant of one of those cultures. This is the witness the Republicans invited to discuss issues of energy security. He came here to promote fossil fuels, which we know are disproportionately harming and killing Black and brown people. Last week, I joined Ranking Member Raskin and all of my Democratic oversight colleagues in calling on oversight Republicans to denounce white nationalism and denounce white supremacy in all its forms. Not one single Republican joined us. So I ask again today, will my Republican colleagues condemn white supremacy and work with us to ensure this committee engages in advancing good and reducing harm rather than perpetuating it? That is respect.
Yeah, those would be racist remarks that witness made. Here we go back to the House floor. Here's Democratic Congressman Jim McGovern, a Democrat from Massachusetts. And here he's saying, he's reading Tucker Carlson's text messages on the House floor. Play this clip.
And the worst part is the blatant lying. On November 21st, 2020, Carlson said in private text that lies about voter fraud were, and I quote, shockingly reckless, and called the very conspiracy theories he was promoting on the air as insane and absurd to his colleagues. He called those propagating the big lie, and I quote again, dangerous as hell. He knew that claims the election was stolen were dangerous lies. But instead of owning up to the truth, he went on TV. And with zero respect for his viewers, for the people of this country, zero respect for the truth, zero respect for our democracy, he sold those dangerous lies to the American people.
Here's Congressman McGovern again, a Democrat, explaining, the ultimate irony of all this performative BS about East Palestine is that the MAGA Republicans are passing bills that are ultimately harming and killing the people from East Palestine. So you can't really reconcile that, can you? Here, play this clip.
Considered under a closed rule, seeks to roll back a majority of the protections on rivers, lakes, and streams that have been implemented since the creation of the Clean Water Act. And I find it particularly ironic that Republicans go to East Palestine, Ohio, saying, we stand with you, we're with you, while here in Congress, they're passing a bill that makes it easier for the company that dumped toxic waste into their rivers to get off scot-free.
I want to show you this interaction between MAGA Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin attacking Sean O'Brien, who is the president of the Teamsters Union, and O'Brien stands his ground, and this MAGA Republican, again, just attacking unions, attacking workers, and the MAGA Republicans think that this is an effective strategy. Here, play this clip.
What do you bring for that salary?
What do I bring?
Yeah, what job have you committed, or have you started? What job have you created? One job, other than sucking the paycheck out of somebody else that you want to say that you're trying to provide because you're forcing them to pay dues? And
no, we don't force them.
Senator, you've asked the
You're
question.
out of line.
Let him
man.
answer the question.
Actually, I haven't, and don't tell me I'm out
you
of line.
You are out of line.
Don't tell me I'm out of line.
Well, you frame,
don't tell me. I'm
making a statement. You frame the statement
you
like a
shut
tough
your
guy.
mouth
Yeah.
because you don't know
You're
what
gonna
you're
tell me to shut
talking
my
about.
mouth?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Yes,
Tough guy. I'm not
Senator,
afraid of physical.
Senator,
You don't have
hold
to be,
it.
but don't sit there and tell me I'm out of line.
Senator, you made a statement. You asked the question.
I didn't ask a question.
You did it.
You did.
I answered the question.
You asked the question about how much
Well, it was
money.
rhetorical.
Let him answer.
It was a rhetorical
Well,
question.
you may think it's rhetorical.
It was
Sounded to me
rhetorical.
like a question. Let him answer the question.
I'm not yielding my time to him. So if you're going to let me keep my time, that's fine.
You'll have your time. Let him. You ask
Your
a question. He has a right to answer that.
As far as my salary goes, my salary, if you follow me around, I actually look at this building. I bet you I work more hours than you do. Twice as many hours.
That's impossible. But
No, that's true.
Sir, you don't know what hard work is. You want to follow my schedule?
I'll do it in a minute.
Here is MAGA Republican Mike Collins of Georgia, who wonders on the House floor if diversity, equity, and inclusion is to blame for what took place in East Palestine. Play the clip.
Consequences. After seeing another Norfolk Southern train derailed this weekend, I was reminded of the fact that the company wrote to shareholders stating that it is focused on DEI. This administration's focus on DEI is forcing private companies to rethink their goals, and one has to wonder, was Norfolk Southern's DEI policies are directing resources away from the important things like greasing wheel bearings? Y'all, this insanity must stop. Speaking of insanity,
And here in a committee hearing where the MAGA Republicans are trying to spread disinformation about COVID, Jamie Raskin has receipts, and Jamie Raskin saying, okay, if you want to say that, if you want to say ultimately that the virus was created in a lab, that's what you want to say. Who was the president at that time, though? You're trying to blame this on Biden? Trump was the president, and Trump was praising President Xi. So whether the virus came from a lab or whether the virus came from a market or other sources, at the end of the day, Donald Trump was President Xi of China's biggest supporter of how President Xi was handling it. Well, I mean, was it supposed to be viewed as a tough guy act when Donald Trump pronounces the name China wrong? And that's how Donald Trump's being strong to China, by pronouncing the name like an idiot? When in reality, Donald Trump is, in all of his messages, publicly praising China and how they handled COVID when they were handling it wrong. If we had anybody in leadership then, it would not have happened the way it went down. A real leader would have done what American presidents did before, which is mobilize the world and to come up with concerted action, because that's what America does. America leads. And under Donald Trump, America didn't lead, America bleeds. Play this clip.
Posted on Twitter, just finished a very good conversation with President Xi of China, discussed in great detail the coronavirus that is ravaging large parts of the planet. China has been through much and has developed a strong understanding of the virus. We are working closely together. Much respect. Because of time, I'm just giving the committee a tiny taste of Donald Trump's fawning, starstruck, sycophantic embrace of everything the Chinese government was telling him in 2020, but I will happily offer a lot more for any colleagues who think that the hunt for the origins will somehow absolve the last administration for telling Americans that COVID would magically disappear at Easter time, or everybody should just take hydroxychloroquine, or refusing to wear a mask, or never developing a national plan to defeat the disease. Whether it was bats or leaks or bureaucrats who caused it, Donald Trump was the biggest apologist in the United States of America for President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party. He could have directed the intelligence community to lead a COVID-19 origins investigation back in March of 2020, 3 years ago. He did not. He wasted precious time minimizing the risk of the virus and lavishing his praise on President Xi. He could have taken the origins of the pandemic seriously and held the CCP accountable. He could have pushed back against the CCP for interfering with the WHO's investigation into its origins, and he could have asked our intelligence community to intervene. He did none of those things. And everyone should remember that. Let's take the politics out of it and let's get to the bottom of what happened.
And finally, the day of hearings and House floor speeches started in this ominous note where Kevin McCarthy, the MAGA Republican Speaker of the House, the weakest Speaker of the House in history, appointed Marjorie Taylor Greene to become the Speaker pro temp of the day. So she had the role of being the honorary speaker, and honorary Marjorie Taylor Greene, who presided over the House today. Play this clip.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., March 8th, 2023. I hereby appoint the Honorable Marjorie Taylor Greene to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 9th, 2023, the chair will now recognize members from the list submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate.
You know, as I said on my Twitter account, I said, that's the Democratic ad right there. Right there. Show that the MAGA Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not a fringe person. She is their leader. She is their champion. She is the face of who the Republican Party is today. And wow, how far have they fallen. And I am so grateful for all of these House speeches on the floor and in the committees where the Democrats are really showing really what I've always wanted the Democrats to be. So it's really good to see this and to report on it to you. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're marching to 1 million subscribers in the month of March. So please hit the subscribe button right now. And also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I think you'll love the exclusive content we have on our Patreon. And we just did an exclusive Zoom chat on our Patreon where all of our patrons got to ask questions to me and the other founders of MeidasTouch, my younger brother. So check that out. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And again, hit subscribe right now. And wherever you get your audio podcast, just search MeidasTouch Podcast. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.